Thank you so much for coming, everybody. This marks our third webinar for this winter. And this is in partnership between the Agency of Agriculture and the Vermont Nursery and Landscaping Association. And today we're going to be focusing on pesticide stuff. My colleague Bethany is here, and we all depend on her for many things. But before we start, Christina, would you like to say a couple words just as the VNLA representative here?
Sure. Welcome, everybody. And I'm Christina Macklin, the Executive Director for the Vermont Nursery and Landscape Association. And this is the third webinar in a series that Emily and Stephanie and Judy and Agency of Ag have collaborated on together. And I'm just so appreciative of this collaboration. Thank you all so much. And Bethany, thank you for doing this this morning.
Great. All right, Bethany, it's all you. Thank you so much.
Let's see if this works. Oh, no, wait, guys. Let's see here.
I'll let you know when it comes
up. Yeah.
There's always a little bit of a lag.
This one.
There you go.
You aren't seeing the notes, are you?
No notes. You are good to go. You may proceed.
Let me move that.
Breathing freely. Nothing notes.
Okay. So I'm Bethany Creaser. I am the Vermont Agency of Agriculture's Pesticide Certification and Training Coordinator. So I've been asked to talk about pesticide licensing and certification today. I'm not sure how many of you are certified, and however many of you are not. I am assuming that it is kind of a mixed bag, that some of you are and some of you are not. So I'm going to cover all aspects of the pesticide licensing and certification today. So for some of you, it might be a little bit of a review if you're certified, but hopefully everyone's going to get something out of this today and kind of help, I guess you could say, demystify our licensing and certification process. I figure during this typically generates a lot of questions. So as I'm presenting, if you have a question, put it in the chat, and then at the end, I'll go through the chat and answer those, and of course, field any live questions as well. So if any of you ever looked at pesticide licensing and certification, you've probably found it extremely confusing. You know, like what type of license do you need? What categories do you need? How do you become certified? And how do you stay certified? So I'm hoping by the end of this, it won't be so confusing anymore, and it'll be a much more straightforward process for y'all to understand. So one thing I've learned is that I should cover some basic terms first, because without understanding these terms, it's going to be more difficult to understanding the licensing and certification. So the first thing I want to talk about for a basic term is what is a pest. So a pest is any living thing that has a negative effect on humans. So it can be something like an unwanted plant, which of course we all call weeds. It could be a fungi, which most commonly is a plant disease. It could be a microbe like a bacteria or virus, insects, rodents, slugs, snails, and a whole host of other living things that people label as pests. Now, labeling something as a pest, of course, it's very subjective, and it varies with each individual's point of view. So like someone might say a dandelion is a pest, and for someone else, they say, no, it's not. So it all depends, again, on your point of view. This is a term, pesticide. What is a pesticide? This is a term that a lot of people misunderstand. So the official definition is a pesticide is a substance or mixture of substances used to kill, control, mitigate, or repel a pest. So this is, again, anything that you are going to use, typically, again, a substance used to control a pest. It can be conventional, it can be natural, and it can be organic. They are all, if it's being used to control a pest, it is a pesticide. So the pesticide is a general term, and there's very many specific types of pesticides. So some of the types that you're going to encounter are going to be insecticides, fungicides, herbicides, rodenticides, molluscicides, and disinfectants. This is just a small list of the specific types of pesticides, but like each one of these listed here is a pesticide. And again, pesticide is the general term, because the most common misconception I have encountered is that people think a pesticide only controls insects. But that's not the case. The pesticide, again, can control weeds, it can control slugs, snails. If it is a substance being used to kill, control, repel, or mitigate a pest, then it is a pesticide. So I like to show this because in the pesticide world, there's so many products available. And like the ones I show here are common products that a lot of people don't necessarily think of as pesticides. And it's what I call my common pesticide misconceptions. And all of these listed here on the screen, they all fall under this pesticide umbrella. So one of the most common misconceptions that I do encounter is people often say, well, herbicides are not pesticides. So what you see on the screen here is something like the weed and feed or preen. Those are herbicides and they are pesticides. I also have had I've been told, well, fungicides aren't pesticides. Fungicides are indeed pesticides. So if you're doing anything to control anything fungal, like a plant disease, you have a pesticide. Another common misconception is that natural or organic, it's not a pesticide, but I've included a couple products on here. You can see one is organic, and the garlic barrier is a natural product as well. These products, they are indeed pesticides because they're making claims of trying to control a pest. I also include the repellents, which the garlic barrier, and of course, most of us are probably familiar with off. Those are insect repellents. Oh, actually, garlic barrier is for animals, but whether it's insect repellent or animal repellent, the repellents are pesticides as well. And I also include a product on this screen that is probably can be found in almost any building, is a disinfectant. So disinfectants are also pesticides as well. So you can see the pesticide world is quite vast, and there's a whole variety of products out there that people might be using that they didn't realize are actually pesticides. So before I get into the different types of pesticide applicators, it's need to understand how Vermont classifies the different types of pesticides. So in Vermont, we have 3 classification types. We have Class A, Class B, and Class C. So the Class A pesticides are federal and state restricted pesticides. And all Class A pesticides require a certified applicator to buy and use or supervise the use of. If it's federally restricted, everyone must be certified to buy and use that product. There's no supervision of this product. Then we have Class B and Class C pesticides, and both of those are general use pesticides. And general use, that means that anyone can buy and use these products. You do not need a certification typically to buy and use these products. So Class B pesticides are pesticides that typically have active ingredient percentage of 3% and higher. It also includes all turf products. So all turf products are Class B. And then you have Class C pesticides, and these are typically ready to use products with active ingredients of less than 3%. There's some exceptions to this, such as all disinfectants, regardless of the percentage of active ingredient they have, are Class C pesticides. So now that we know what the basic terms are, what a pesticide is, what a pest is, and what the different classifications of pesticides are in Vermont, I'm now going to talk about what are the different applicator types in Vermont. And so you might be wondering, like, do I need to become a licensed certified pesticide applicator? So of course, the answer to that is going to depend on the type of work you do, as well as, of course, the types of pesticides you use, if it's Class A, B, or C. So in Vermont, we have three applicator types. We have commercial, non-commercial, and private. So commercial pesticide applicator, the official definition is a person who uses a pesticide on the land or home of another, whether for remuneration or gratuity. That means whether you're doing it for pay or volunteer. You're essentially what this is, you are being hired to go and use a pesticide on a customer's property. A non-commercial applicator is someone who uses Class A or B pesticides in the course of their employment on their employer's property or on property the employer has a right to manage. All of these applications, this is for non-agricultural pesticide applications. So an example of a non-commercial applicator in Vermont is a golf course superintendent. They are making non-agricultural pesticide applications on the property of their employer as part of their job. And then we have private applicators. And a private applicator is someone who uses or supervises the use of a pesticide on property owned or rented by their employer to produce an agricultural commodity. So in other words, this is for farms. So a private applicator is someone who uses pesticides on a farm for agricultural production. So the difference between private and non-commercial is non-commercial is non-ag and private is agricultural. So for private certification, I wanted to touch upon the two main reasons why someone may need a private certification. So if you are someone who has a greenhouse or runs a nursery, why would you need this? So the first reason is because you want to buy and use Class A pesticides on your farm. So if you want to buy and use Class A pesticides on your farm, you would need to obtain your private applicator certification, or an employee on your farm would need to obtain the private applicator certification. The other reason you would want to get your private applicator certification is because you need to comply with the Federal Worker Protection Standard. So I like to describe WPS as OSHA for farm workers because it is a pesticide safety training program. And what the WPS provides is pesticide safety information to farm employees. And the person who provides that safety training, they must be qualified to provide the training. And the qualification is that the person, if you're a certified applicator, that qualifies you to do worker protection standard training to people on your farm. So that means if you do get your private certification, you can train your the work protection standard safety training to your workers and handlers yourself. I do want to mention that it is a best management practice for you to become a certified private applicator because you use pesticides on the farm. We highly recommend that if you're using pesticides, that becoming certified as a private applicator, again, that is a practice that we recommend. So the worker protection standard, now you might be wondering, do I need to comply with the worker protection standard? So do you need to provide training to your employees on your farm? So what I have here is a series of questions that it simplifies the WPS, but it can help you hone in if you do need to comply with the worker protection standard. So the questions you'll want to ask yourself is, do you own or manage a farm? Like a nursery, forest, greenhouse? Do you own or manage one of any of the agricultural operations? And then, do you use pesticides on your farm? Again, whether it's organic or conventional, do you use any pesticides at all? If you do use pesticides, does the pesticide have what we call on the label an agricultural use requirement box? So here is a kind of a snippet of what that would look like on the label. So if the pesticide label has that on there, that would trigger the worker protection standard. And then do you hire non-family employees? Or do you use a product that requires the use of a respirator? And then the next question is, do your employees, do they do what we call crop production tasks like harvesting, weeding, or repotting? Basically, they work amongst the crops. Or do any of them handle the pesticides themselves? If you answered yes to all of those questions, then you will likely need to comply with the worker protection standard. So again, this is a very simplistic view of the worker protection standard. There's a lot of nuance to it. There's a lot to this regulation. So again, this breaks it down very simply. But if you look at this and say, I think this does apply to me, then I highly encourage you to look up information about the work protection standards so you can learn more about it to see what is required of that. So let's say you've decided you need to become a licensed certified applicator, and you've determined if you need to be commercial, non-commercial, private. So what's the next steps? The first thing you want to do is determine what specific pesticide certification that you will need. So what I have listed here on the screen are certification categories that are most likely pertain to you. I tried to choose the certification categories that I thought would be most relevant to this audience. There's a lot more certification categories than listed here on the screen. I can't remember off the top of my head how many, but I know it's over 20 categories or certifications that we have available. So if you are a farm, of course it includes things like greenhouses and nurseries, you would be a private applicator. If you decided you're commercial or non-commercial, you would need to have for certifications likely one of the ones listed here, the 1A, ag plant, category 2, forestry, category 3A, ornamental shade tree, and category 3B, turf. I didn't list here, but it may be something that perhaps you also may do is what we call our 7B as in boy. We call it our vector pest category. I just call that our mosquito tick category. So if you're doing mosquito tick applications, we do have category 14. It's currently called terrestrial invasive plants. I will be updating that name, but it is a new category that we do not have available yet as a certification to obtain. because we need a study manual to go along with the category and then an exam to go along with the category. But if you are doing what I'm going to call noxious weed control, then we tell people to get category 2 forestry right now until our category 14 becomes available. So to become a certified applicator, it's going to require you to take and pass the appropriate pesticide exams. So for private certification, you're going to need to take and pass the private core exam. And to study for that exam, you're going to need the core manual, the worker protection standard how to comply manual, and Vermont specific study inserts, which would be the Vermont rule for control of pesticides and a Vermont pollinator protection study insert. For commercial and non-commercial certification, to prepare, you will need to study the core manual and at least one category specific manual. And you'll get those study manuals, all of the study manuals, the core manual, category manuals, you would order online and they will be shipped directly to you. All of the study inserts that we have are available on our website as PDFs, including the work protection, how to comply manual. They're all PDFs that you would download to study. I do want to mention that if you are commercial and you are new, you will also need to obtain a commercial pesticide company license to become a certified applicator. That is just simply filling out our form and paying the fee. And that license can be obtained at the same time you go for your exams. So then you know what you need to study and what to do. How do you go about taking the exams? How do you prepare for them? And in Vermont, it's pretty straightforward. Basically, well, you order the study materials, you study them, and when you feel you're ready, you schedule to take the proper exams. And then when you pass and pay the appropriate fees, you will then receive your pesticide license that shows that you are a certified pesticide applicator in the state of Vermont. So how do you prepare for these besides studying the manuals? Because you get the manuals and it requires that you need to read and study them. UVM Extension Pesticide Safety Education Program, or UVM PSEP, has created some online, on-demand study courses to help exam takers, help them prepare for the exams they're going to take. So these are available on UVM PSEP's website. Currently, they have a handful available. The ones they have available right now are the exams that I administer the most. And for you all, the relevant ones would be core. That one would cover both all private, commercial, non-commercial. It provides a core review. And likely category 3B would be of interest. Maybe again, the category 7B, the mosquito tick. But once you enroll in these courses, you have them available to you for 2 weeks to view and study their videos. There are modules that are broken down into, I think, anywhere from a half hour to an hour each module. And I believe each course is up to usually a little less than 4 hours long. Eventually, the plan is to have as many of our Vermont categories on here to help people prepare for the exams, but this is what is currently available. So taking the pesticide exams, there's 2 ways that you can take an exam in Vermont. The first way you can do so is online. So as of December, we started offering online proctored exams as a new service available. So to do this, if you want to take them online, you're going to begin by filling out an online request form. that starts the process, that alerts me that you or your employee wishes to take a pesticide exam. The online exams, you can take them anytime and anywhere. So all you need is a computer or laptop with an internet connection, a microphone, and a camera. The online exams do have a cost of $60 per exam. This is a fee that is paid directly to the vendor who provides the service for us. So currently, we don't have all of the categories or certifications available, but the ones we do have available are the ones that are offered, again, the exams that I offer the most. And currently, you can take the private core, the core exam, the dealer exam, category 2 forestry, category 3B turf, category 6 right of way, category 7A general structural, category 7B, which again I call my mosquito tick, and category 7C, which is general structural food processing. I am working on adding 3A as the next exam to the online exam offerings. The next way you can take an exam is in person. To schedule an exam in person, we have an online scheduler where you're going to choose when and where you want to take the exam. So exams are offered every Wednesday morning in Montpelier. And then once a month, we offer exams in Williston, Rutland, and Brattleboro. Eventually, once I do have all certifications available for online, eventually I will phase out the Williston, Rutland, and Brattleboro locations. But we're trying to come up with ways to provide the service because it does get busy. I will give you all a heads up if you are realizing, gosh, I need to become certified. The exam season is starting to ramp up for me. Exam sessions do fill up rather quickly. Typically, I would say from about mid to late March through July. It's very common for the exam sessions to fill up. So I'm hoping the online exams will help alleviate that when it gets really busy. So often people want to ask me questions about the exams themselves. How are the exams? All exams, they are multiple choice. And the core exam has 100 questions, and each category has 50 questions. We consider a passing score to be 75% or higher. If you fail an exam and you need to retake an exam, we at the Agency of Ag charge a $25 per exam fee to take an exam a second or third time. To retake an exam for what I call the first retake, or taking your exam for the second time, you have to wait 1 week before you can take it again. If you fail that time, and if you wish to take the exam for what I call the second retake, or taking the exam for the third time, you must wait 1 month from the date you first took the exam before you can take it again. If you fail that exam for a third time, then you must wait 1 year before you can take that exam again. We are hoping to update this so that the waiting period is not as long. Hopefully, next year, if it happens, I believe it would likely trigger on the next fiscal year, which would be July 1st. That this waiting period will change, but for now, this is what it is. So now that you've passed all of your exams and you've paid the appropriate fees and you're a certified applicator, what are the fees for that? The private applicator's license is $25. And this license and certification, it's good for 5 years. And at the end of that 5 years, for private applicators, you can renew and recertify. For commercial and non-commercial applicators, The fee is $30 per category. Your license is renewed every year at the end of the calendar year, and your certification is good for 5 years, provided you renew your license every year. The commercial pesticide company license at $75, and that is a license that is renewed annually as well. There's no continuing education requirements for the pesticide company license. So each certification, we have that on a 5-year cycle. It doesn't matter if it's private, commercial, or non-commercial. So this is the certification cycle. To recertify at the end of that 5-year certification cycle, you can either take your exams again, or you can obtain some pesticide continuing education credits. Private applicators, they need 8 credits over their 5-year certification period. And commercial and non-commercial applicators need 16 credits over that 5-year certification period. There's different ways you can obtain these recertification credits, from going to meetings, courses. We also have home quizzes from what we call our pesticide applicator newsletter. Your pesticide credits can be submitted anytime during the year. And you must obtain these credits within your 5-year certification cycle. It is worth noting that commercial and non-commercial applicators, if your license is not renewed within 1 year, your certification will become what we call lapsed. And a lapsed certification means that if you wish to become certified again, you'll need to take and pass the appropriate exams. So if you, for example, had a license last year that expired on 12/31/2025, and your certification expires on 12/31/2028, if you do not renew your license by 12/31/2026, even though your certification has a couple years left on it, it will become lapsed because you did not renew your license within 1 year. So now let's take a closer look at what a Vermont pesticide license would look like. And what you see here on the screen is an example of what you would receive in the mail. So you've probably noticed I keep saying license and certification. They're 2 different things, but they go hand in hand when it comes to our program. So your license, you're going to see some different things. And one of the things you're going to see here is your license number. The license number will be some numbers, a dash, and then some more numbers. For a private applicator, it's going to be a P, a dash, and then some numbers. This is your license number. So for non-commercial and commercial, the digits before the dash, that is who you work for. So everyone who works at the same place will have the same digits before that hyphen. So this is my certification. I work for the Vermont Agency of Agriculture. So all of my coworkers at the Agency of Agriculture will have a 1 before the dash. And then the digits after the dash, that's the individual. That is the person's license number. So for me, my individual license number is 3256. And also you're going to notice on your license is this expiration date. This is the license expiration date. So again, for commercial and non-commercial, this is every year. For private, this is every 5 years. So privates, well, their certification, their license is on the same cycle. And then you're going to see at the bottom these numbers and dates. And what this shows you is what categories or certifications you have and when that certification expires. So you could see that for myself, I have category 10, 1A, and 3A, and I will need to obtain 16 credits in each of those categories by the year 2030, provided I renew my license every year until then. How do you know how many credits you have towards your certification? So for commercial and non-commercial applicators, your license is renewed every year. And that means every year you are receiving renewal paperwork. And on that paperwork, there's going to be a breakdown showing each category and how many credits that you have earned and how many you need. So every year, you should take a look at that paperwork to see your progress of your credits, see how you're doing. For private applicators, because your license and certification are both on a 5-year cycle, I will mail a letter to you at the beginning of your 4th year that will provide you with the information about how many credits you have obtained. So this will give you basically like 1 year head up if you need to obtain more credits. Also, at any time, you can use our online credit search. So on the screen is a screenshot of what that looks like. You're going to need your certification ID, which you're going to input in this line. And remember, that's going to be your individual license number, which are the digits after the hyphen. So you only enter those digits after the hyphen. For most people, it's going to be 4 digits. And then, of course, enter your last name and then click on search. And this is going to tell you how many credits you, I think it tells you how many you need and by when. So if it says you need 0 credits, then you already have the credits you need to recertify at the end of your certification period. We also have, you can look it up in our system. You can register an account in our system to log in and see more detailed information about your certifications, like what meetings you have attended, how many credits you have, how many credits you need. If you are already certified and you have not registered an account in our system and you would like to do so you can look this information up, you'll need to get a hold of me because I will need to provide you with some information so you can register an account in our system to do this. So if you have looked this up and realized that you do need more credits because your certification period is coming up and you have not met your continuing education requirements, how do you get those credits? How do you find ways to get those credits? So we do have an online pesticide recertification course locator. Again, this is a screenshot of what it looks like. Courses, they could be what we call on-site. So you could search for on-site, meaning in person. If you search for online, those are online on-demand courses that you basically enroll in and take at your leisure. If you do a search for webinars, it's going to show you live streaming courses typically offered through something like Zoom or Teams that you can enroll in. And the correspondence right here is our pesticide applicator newsletter that has the home quizzes in them for credit. So you can use this search to find the various credit opportunities. I am always getting courses and meetings submitted to me throughout the year. I get them submitted quite a bit, several times. Doesn't matter what time of year it is. Sometimes of year it's a little more busy and I get more submitted than at other times. But basically, if you search and you don't see anything available, say within the next few weeks, keep checking back because again, I'm getting them submitted and approving courses throughout the year. Now, you want to pay attention when you're searching for courses to what categories the trainings have been approved for credits. So, for example, if the training says it's going to provide credit for category 3B turf, and you are certified as a private applicator or a commercial category 1A agricultural plant applicator, this training that provides credit only for 3B will not provide you with credits. So make sure to pay attention to that. The home quizzes from the newsletter, those newsletters always have general information in them. which means those home quizzes are going to provide credits for all certifications. So anyone can use those to get credits for any certification. I also want to note that uh, all of the New England states have pesticide credit reciprocity. And what that means is if you attend a training in Massachusetts and the training provides pesticide recertification credits, you get a copy of the credit slip from attending that, and you send me a copy, and I will provide those credits to your certification. I will also accept certification credit slips from New York State. So if you attend a training in New York and you get the credit slip, you can also send that to me for training. So that also means if you look up on our course search for training opportunities and you aren't finding anything that is of interest or pertains to you, you might want to try searching the other New England states course searches or New York State's course searches to see if they have some trainings that may be of interest to you to provide recertification credits. So some of the common questions that I get when it comes to pesticide licenses and certification four of them are listed here. So one of them is supervision of a pesticide application allowed? So in Vermont, we do allow direct supervision of a pesticide application, except when it is with a federal restricted use pesticide. If it's a federal restricted use pesticide, everyone using it must be certified. Otherwise, we do allow the direct supervision. And what we call direct supervision, we mean that the person who is responsible for the application, the certified applicator, has to be within eye or earshot of the people they're supervising. Can you have multiple licenses? Absolutely. I have people who have a commercial license and a private license. I have people who have 2 commercial licenses. I have some that have a commercial and a non-commercial license. You can have multiple licenses. Can you maintain your license if you leave your employment? Absolutely. You just need to reach out to me and I can talk you through the various options available to you. Because remember, your pesticide certification is your certification. So that is yours to keep and maintain if you wish to do so. And do you have to take all of the exams at the same time? No. You can, it's up to you. Some people do prefer, like if you have to take, say, the category, the core exam and the category 3A ornamental shade tree, you can choose to come in and take the core exam first, do that, and then take the 3A at a different time. Or you can take them all in one go. I've had, I believe, I think it was 5 exams in one exam session. They somehow finished all 5 of those in the 3-hour time period that we have available for them to take the exams. It's a lot, but that person did it. You do not have to do that. But again, it's up to you if you want to take one or all at the same time. And then the last thing I want to touch upon is record keeping. So once you're certified, there's some record keeping that you will need to do. I'm not going to get into too many details about the record keeping. I'm just going to kind of provide a summary of it. So for private applicators, what I recommend to private applicators is that you do keep records based off of the worker protection standard record keeping requirements. Because if you're following the worker protection standard record keeping requirements, it's going to follow all other record keeping requirements that would be at the state level. And then you would want to record this information each time you use a pesticide on your farm. For non-commercial applicators and actual commercial applicators, you're going to record information each time you use a pesticide. And again, for both commercial and non-commercial, you're going to use these routine daily records to compile what we call your annual use report at the end of the year when you're renewing your license. So for commercial applicators, or in if you're non-commercial, making lawn and ornamental applications, but typically this is mostly commercial. It's a lawn and ornamental application. In our Vermont Rule for Controlled Pesticides, it says that prior to using any pesticides, you're supposed to provide your customer with information about your planned pesticide use. So it's kind of like a summary of what you plan to do. So it could be something that you provide to them in the spring, saying, you know, about this time of year, you plan to do some grub treatment in their lawn. It just needs to provide some basic information to them. It does not mean that you're necessarily going to do that. It's just that that is the your plan of kind of, I guess you can say, it's not really a production plan, but it's your kind of, I guess you could say their landscape plan for the year. And once you go to your customer's property and you do make that application, you're going to record that information. And you're also going to, after the application, give your customer, we call it a receipt, an invoice. Basically, it's something that tells your customer what you used, where you used it, provides them with information about the application that actually took place. And then for lawn and ornamental, you also need to place a sign like the one pictured here on the screen. Those signs are supposed to be placed at we call conspicuous points of entry. Basically, you put it somewhere where you think your customer is going to see it, because sometimes there really isn't a conspicuous point of entry. But I'm sure a lot of times any of the customers might not actually be home when you're making an application on their property, and these signs are a visual for when they do get home to see that something has been done. Now, for the annual use report for both commercial and non-commercial, if you work across multiple counties, I highly recommend recording the name of the county in your records. It is not a record-keeping requirement and a rule, but I do recommend it because at the end of the year, when you are compiling your annual use, it is by county. So if you have the county written down in your records, it'll be much easier to separate all your records at the end of the year to be able to compile that report. So I tried to leave lots of time for questions because, again, I find a lot of people have questions about this particular topic. I also have put the links that I had, the QR codes and the links to the UVM PSEP courses on the screen so that they're there available for you all to see. So I have to get back to this screen to see if there's questions, and it looks like there might be. So there's a question that says, do you need to take 2 exams? For category 2, there's a core exam plus a category. Oh, no. Yes. I'm reading it and I see, yes, it's already answered. So yes, for commercial, non-commercial, it is always the core in a category. You may also need multiple categories. Landscapers often get category 3A, 3B, ornamental, and turf. And if there's more questions, you can raise your hand and ask verbally, and I see someone's typing, so let's see what the next question is. That's a good question. The question is, when do you expect to have category 14 ready? I am hoping I'm hoping fall of 2027.
Jesus.
But hey, writing writing a manual is an extremely labor intensive task, and I have the UVM pesticide safety education program. They are actively working on it. It's just one person, and that's only part of her job, and so it's a lot. It's really a lot of work. So I did not understand how much work it was until we started going down that road. But that's hopefully the plan. I see Stephanie has a question.
Yeah, no, I was just thinking about nursery owners that hire, and maybe you talked about this, that hire out applicators to apply on their property. And if you
Yeah.
had any thoughts about that, I guess this isn't a question so much as your thoughts.
They may, yeah. So you could be like you own a nursery, and maybe you also grow pumpkins to sell in the fall. But you don't do the applications yourself. You hire that out. That is something that's quite common that happens on farms. Um, those companies, they will be commercial applicators and certified in 1A, which is agricultural plant. They are the ones they're going to do all the work. They're going to do the record keeping, but they're also need to leave you with information about that application so that you have that information to know, because for agricultural applications, especially for field crops, some of the products that are used have what they call plant back restrictions, which say if you use this product, you cannot plant, say, corn in this field next year. Because that's a plant back restriction, and that's something the farm needs to know. The farm also needs to know, especially if they have employees, the information, because that application is likely going to trigger the worker protection standard. And the worker protection standard training is on the farm to provide. The commercial applicator needs to provide you with the information so that the farm can comply with the worker protection standard. Yeah, the agricultural applications in Vermont should only be commercial or private, because non-commercial is non-agricultural. Yeah. See, there's another question being typed. If anyone has they want to ask it verbally, you can do so as well. I see it looks like Christina has a question.
I'm just curious why they call it private applicator instead of agricultural applicator. It's very confusing.
I suspect that's because, so all of the pesticide certification, and actually all pesticide work, we do under the authority of EPA. EPA they set the basic rules for every state. So every state follows the same basic rules. And then EPA designates in each state what they call a state lead agency, and that state lead agency is responsible for making sure that the federal rules are followed. So, and of course, here in Vermont, the Vermont Agency of Agriculture is the state lead agency. So ultimately, it is a basis of federal laws that we're following, and it is the Federal Insecticide, Fungicide, and Rodenticide Act, or FIFRA, which is the federal law that outlines all of this. And I know they use private applicator. So I suspect that's why. I know it's confusing to see non-commercial and private because they sound the same, because you're using pesticides. And for a lot of people, it is on their employer's property. But the distinction is one is non-ag and one is ag. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, do we have any other questions? Thank you so much, Bethany. You are always a fountain of information. There's just a lot of info too. It's
Yeah, it is.
So
it's
thank you. Yeah. That was great. And people will have access to this online. Christina, do you have any things to round us out here?
Just thank you so much. And we're getting ready to publish our next newsletter. So I will definitely make sure I outline this in there so people it's going to be a great resource for our members to just be able to get some questions answered via this webinar. So
hopefully they are going to find this helpful.
I think so, for sure.
Yeah, I get questions all the time. It is so confusing. And if you are on the border with, say, New Hampshire, Massachusetts, or New York, and you do work in both multiple states, each state is also slightly different and they do things differently. And it makes it even more confusing to figure out each state's different requirements when it comes to pesticide licensing and certification. So it's just, yeah, it gets very confusing very quickly.
Yeah, great. I'm glad you mentioned that because we do have members that border. Yeah.
Yeah.
So very helpful.
It's good to note that if you have a member who is in New York State and they are certified in New York State, they can obtain the Vermont certification with their New York certification. So we have certification reciprocity with New York, New Jersey, Rhode Island, Pennsylvania, and Virginia. So unfortunately not New Hampshire, Massachusetts, Maine, or Connecticut, but New York, if you have a New York certification, you can get your Vermont applicator's license without having to take the exams in Vermont, with the exception of 7B, which is mosquito tick. So if there's no equivalent category in New York State, because New York State does not have that, they would have, and they want that in Vermont, they would have to take the 7B in Vermont.
Bethany, is there any hope of getting reciprocity with Massachusetts, Connecticut, and the other states you mentioned? No.
No, reciprocity is not as straightforward as it seems.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So if anyone has questions, I think I'm still sharing. I'm gonna stop sharing. But I think I have my email and the phone number. It is a general phone number and email, but I'm usually the one to answer. If it's a call, do leave a message. I try to call everyone back, so you will get a human being.
Stephanie, this was like
Bethany is very
exactly
good
what I
about
was.
that.
Oh yeah, this is like exactly what I was hoping for. So thank you.
Oh, good. I'm glad to hear that because I wasn't sure. I'm like, what to prepare for this.
It's
So
great.
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank
All
you.
right,
Thank you.
folks, I'm gonna stop the recording, but Bethany, thank you again. That was really great. And thank you just for prepping all of that. That was a lot of work too. So thank you.
Yeah.
Mhm.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Take care, everybody.
All right. Bye.